Okay, page 318. Here we go. Okay, we're going to go for a bit of a ride. The Vaydaber Elokim El Moshe, Parshas Vayira. Vaydaber Elokim El Moshe, Vayomer Elov Ani Hashem. So first of all, you'll notice that it starts off with Midas Hadin. Hashem's name Elokim is Midas Hadin. And then he very quickly shifts into Vayomer Elov Ani Hashem. So the question over here is, why is there suddenly a shift? So there are two ideas that the Mefarshim mentioned over here. Number one, if you remember at the end of the last Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu is complaining to Hashem. That's how the last Parsha Shemos has ended. Moshe Rabbeinu says, like, why are you, for instance, the time you sent me to Paro, all he's done is make things worse, and he's, what do you call it, and you haven't saved the Jew. He's come to Hashem with a complaint. So Hashem says, okay, you're going to see what's going to happen, but now Moshe Rabbeinu deserves a little bit of, what do you call it? Take a look at the first Rashi. Diber ito mishpat. Hashem spoke harshly with Moshe Rabbeinu. He took him to task. Al shehiksha l'daber, top Rashi on 2:318. Al shehiksha l'daber v'lomar loma hariosa loma zeh. Why did you do bad to these people? Since you sent me, nothing's happened. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks harshly with Moshe Rabbeinu. Vaydaber Elokim. Vaydaber Elokim el Moshe. Vaydaber is also a harsh lashon. That's why it says kosomar leveis Yaakov. Right? Kosomar. Right? You speak softly to women. The Beis Yaakov is the women. When he comes down from the mountain, he says, you speak softly, gently to women. Because women generally don't care what you say as much as how you say it. Right? It's how you say it. Right? They don't like your tone. I don't like your tone of voice. Right? Oh, well, yeah, I didn't like that one. Wait till you hear this one, babe. That was nothing. So, by the women, and it could even be a good thing. It could be a good thing, but they it's like, just pick out any couch you want. Right? You can go shopping with your wife and it's taking you a long time, and you say, here, just pick out any couch you want. I don't like your tone of voice. Hey, come on, lady, just take the couch, will you? Right? So it's how. That's why you talk to women, you talk very gently. It's not what you say, it's as much as how you say it. And most of the time, sometimes it's what you say. It's what you say. But here, Vaydaber is a lashon that you speak to the Jewish, to the men. The men you got to speak to direct. And what do you call it? The women is kosomar leveis Yaakov. You speak gently to the Beis Yaakov, to the women. Here it starts with Vaydaber Elokim, Vayomer Elov Ani Hashem, and then he goes into Midas HaRachamim. So the Mefarshim say, why is it that there's a switch over here? It started off with Elokim, then it goes to Midas HaRachamim. Why is that? So one of the ideas is, first of all, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the most humble person. One of the signs of humility is you're willing to overlook the wrongs that people have done to you. That's a sign of humility. Some guy did something wrong to you. Not every issue has to be made an issue out of it. The fact that somebody did say, I'm going to have to let them know. I just want you to know. I know people like this, by the way. People say, I just want you to know that yesterday you were in my parking space. Right? Now, there's no nafkamina today. They're not there today, and it's probably never going to happen again. But I can't get past letting you know that you did something wrong to me. Part of humility is that you drop it. Part of humility is let it go. There's chumashim over there. Part of humility is you wouldn't let it go. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we mentioned many times before, he pays mida keneged mida. He pays HaKadosh Baruch Hu, pays what you get what you deserve. Moshe Rabbeinu, you're willing to overlook. Hashem starts out with Midas Hadin, but then goes to Midas HaRachamim. You've earned that I will also overlook. That's a rule in life. It's a rule in life. Hashem deals with us the way we deal with others. You're a person who's willing to overlook, HaKadosh Baruch Hu overlooks. You're a person who's making an issue out of every little thing, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes an issue out of every little thing in a person's life. You basically create your own reaction. You create your own whatever the response is from Hashem, we create that response through our own actions. To a certain extent, we create the response. Number one. Number two, there's a lesson here in how you tell people off. When you tell somebody off, if you start with something, listen, you're really a good guy, but, right? Then you know that something's coming. You always should start off with first the criticism. I think you ought to stop talking during davening so much. I know that a guy like you who's very conscientious about serving Hashem really wouldn't want to be doing that. Start off with the negative. End off on a positive note. That's heard much better than starting with the positive and going to the negative, because then I know that that's all the reason you're talking to me is because you want to get to the negative. So you always try to and that's also when you're dealing with your kids. If your kid does something, so something you just have the presence of mind. Sometimes they get you so ticked off that you don't have the presence of mind. But you always say, a boy like you doesn't do that. You've done two things at one time. A boy like you doesn't do that. So you've built him up. I heard about Rabbi Twersky. You know, you've heard of Rabbi Avram Twersky, the famous, he was the doctor of Nifter last year, I think, a year ago. So he said when he was a little boy, he was about 9 years old, and he said he was very good at chess. And they had a guest in the house one Shabbos or a Yontif, I think it was about Rosh Hashanah even. And he played the guest a game of chess, which on Shabbos was on Yontif, especially Rosh Hashanah, was certainly not appropriate. So his father called him in, and his father said to him, I heard you played chess yesterday? So that was all he said. And, he's already, he felt bad, his father. And the father, he just letting him know that he knew was enough of a musser. Then he said to him, and as a kid, he saw the kid was great, he said, but you beat him, didn't you? Right? Pick it up at the end. Don't let it, end off with something positive. End off with something positive. By me, it would have been the opposite. I would have said, you lost? That would have been the musser. Better not lose. What's the point of playing if you're going to lose? So, now, that's the first ride. Now we're going for a little bit of a ride. Va'era el Avram el Yitzchak el Yaakov bekel Shakai. I appeared to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov with the name Kel Shakai. Ushmi Hashem, we don't pronounce it, we say Shakai, even though there's a dollar there. Ushmi Hashem, Yudke Vavke, Lo Nodati Lem. I didn't appear to them with my name of Hashem, I appeared as Kel Shakai. The word Shakai, the Gemara says, is made up of two words. Shakai, the Dalit in the Yud is Dai. Dai means enough. And the Gemara says it stands for She'omar le'olamo Dai. That means when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world was expanding, and at a certain point he said, Dai. That's it. This is the world that I want. Whatever that means. Talk about matters that are beyond our comprehension, obviously. Didn't Einstein talk about an expanding universe? Didn't he say something about an expanding universe? Okay, so I don't think he was onto quite this concept. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu she'amar le'olamo Dai. Okay, number one. Now, what is this name Shakai? It's a very, very interesting name. Now listen to this. There are two interesting Gemaras. The last Mishnah in Shas is the Mishnah in Uktzin, says that every tzaddik is going to be given 310 worlds in the world to come. Did you ever hear that? Shai Olamos, Shin Yud. Every tzaddik in the world, in the next world, is going to be given 310 worlds. Shin Yud. And there are different opinions. The Bartanura and the Mishnayos says that means 310 times whatever this world is. Rav Dessler says, Rav Dessler is trying to use an example of what eternal reward is. So first he gives an example of what eternity is. Okay? So Rav Dessler says, imagine there's a bird. Okay? You have a bird. You ever hear this example?
Brothers Grimm, right? Yeah. That was it Brothers... No? Never mind. Go on.
The Brothers Grimm?
In Mishmar, I think.
Okay.
Oh, somebody mentioned this?
Pick up sand and...
A bird picks up a grain of sand every 100 years. Right? Yeah, right. And it picks up a grain of sand every 100 years. So first, Rav Dessler goes through an exercise how long a year is. Just think how long a day is in a month. In 100 years, think what's been going on and what 100 years ago. In the year 19, what year are we in? 1920. In 1923. Imagine what was going on in 1923. I think the Yankees won the World Series. Imagine what was going on in 1923. Right, and what do you call it? I know in 24, what do you call it? No, in 2024 was the Tigers. In 1923, so imagine, what was it? That's 100 years ago. Imagine what's happened, how long 100 years is. And once every 100 years, a bird comes, takes one grain of sand. How long it would take to clear out the seashore, all the seashores of the world. That gives you an inkling what eternity is. You thought it was standing in line in the bank. No, eternity is right, or a New York traffic jam. Now, eternity is even longer than that. If you could imagine something, if you could imagine such a thing. That's as far as the length of time. When he speaks about pleasure of the world to come, so he takes all of the pleasures you've experienced today. That means it could be, a cup of coffee in the morning, that good cup of coffee. It could be what he called a physical pleasure, a spiritual pleasure, any pleasure you've had, all the steaks you've had in your life, all the hot dogs you've had in your life, all the movies you've seen, all the pleasures that you've had. And then he says, take all the pleasures of all the people who have ever lived in the entire history of the world. And then you roll that up into one massive explosion of pleasure. All of that doesn't equal one moment in the world to come. All the pleasures that all human beings have ever had, any type of pleasure they've all had in this world since the beginning of time until now, none of that equals one moment of pleasure in the world to come. Okay? And then you're going to get 310 times all that pleasure for eternity. Something along those lines. Whatever it is, it's good. Whatever it is, it's supposed to be very, very good. Okay? That's 310 worlds that everybody gets. Number one. Number two is another strange statement. The Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he asked Hashem, later on in the Torah, Moshe says, let me see you. I want to see your essence. And Hashem says, you won't see the front of me, you can only see me from the back. And he puts him in the crevice, and Hashem passes by, and Moshe sees the back of Hashem. And the Gemara says, what did he show him? Kesher shel tefillin. He showed him a tefillin knot. Hashem wears tefillin. Hashem wears tefillin, the Gemara says. And he showed him a tefillin knot. In the back of the tefillin, what have you got? You got a dalid. You got a dalid on the back of your tefillin. Some people have a double dalid. As the standard Ashkenazi way of tying it is a dalid. You have shins and yuds on the tefillin. You have a shin, you have a little yud knot over here. And you have the shins embossed on both sides of the tefillin. One is with 4 prongs, one is with 3 prongs. And then you have and by the way, you know why there's 4 and 3 prongs? Because the shins together, shin and shin equals 600. 600. 600 and, what do you call it? 600 and, 600 and shesh. Oh, there we go. 600, the 2 shins together is shesh, spells the word shesh, is 606. Then there are 4 prongs and 3 prongs. There's 7, being up to 613. Right, so the shins themselves symbolize the 613 mitzvahs. There's shins, the shins themselves, the letter shin is 300, so 2 shins equals 600. The word shin and shin, it's just shesh, it's all 6, it's 606. Then there are 4 prongs and there are 3 prongs. One of the shins has 4 prongs, with 613. Okay? Then you have the little yud over here, and you've got the dalet on the back of the tefillin is tied as a dalet knot, and it has to be tied as a dalet knot. So the Gemara makes this very, very abstract statement that Moshe Rabbeinu saw when he saw the back of Hashem, he saw kesher tefillin. What does that mean? What does that mean? You saw Hashem's tefillin. What happened? Hashem came late to davening? Moshe Rabbeinu came late to davening that morning? He saw the back of the tefillin. There's some people only ever see the back of anybody's tefillin, because they always come late. What does that mean? The answer is that the name Shakai, I appeared as Shakai. That means that the reward of the world to come is beyond us. The shin and the yud of the name Shakai represents the reward of the world to come. That's beyond us, the shin, and that's why the Mishnah says there are 310 worlds. Shai olamos. There are 310 worlds waiting for us. That's the shin and the yud of the name Shakai. That nobody could see. What is shown to Moshe Rabbeinu? The Daled on the Tefillin, which is the middle letter of Shakai. The Daled. What does the Daled represent? The four corners of the earth. The pleasures, the rewards of this world, Moshe Rabbeinu is shown that he's got exposure to. But the rewards of the world to come, the Shin Yud of the world to come, that even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't see that. Lo Yirani ha'adam v'chai, no man can see me and live. If a human being were exposed to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the explosion of spirituality, of pleasure, of experiencing HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be so much that the body couldn't contain the neshama. And therefore the neshama would just leave. No man could see me. It's not punishment. It means the human being is physically incapable of containing that. That explosion of pleasure Can you imagine a person that explosive? A person wouldn't be able to handle it. And if you ever had like one of these, they have these sugar straws. I give my grandchildren these straws that got little powdered sugar in them. Like, look at me with it. So the kids like them. The parents can't stand them, which is why I give it to them. Right? They're hard to open, and the kid always got to go, Daddy, open it for me. He's got to go to his father. And my son has begged me, could he give him something else? No, and I like seeing my son tortured a little bit because they got to cut it with a scissors. Then the kid every 2 minutes it gets stuck. I do also. If the grandchildren are already doing it, I do it too. So you pour in a whole straw's worth into your mouth. It's like, whoa, whoa. It's like ODing on cocaine, whoa. You can't handle it. The physical body can't handle it. I get the kids all wired up with it. And I get them all sugared up. And then they start bouncing off the walls. And I tell my kids, okay, take care of your kids, will you? No, Daddy, anything but that. It's got everything good. It's sweet. It's sugar. It's got food coloring. These kids are absolutely out of control. Take them home, will you?
Yeah, you could take them.
Yeah, and sweet revenge, as they say. Okay, so the what do you call it? That's the idea. That's the idea of Kel Shakai. Okay, now, yeah, go ahead. I can't answer any question about this, by the way, but go ahead, try. Yeah. I'm only telling you as much as I know, right?
We don't about the mezuzah, no reference. Like
He doesn't mention it over here. Doesn't mention what the idea is. The mezuzah, we know the mezuzah is protection and that sort of thing. It's a mistake the one mistake people make about mezuzahs, by the way, is that when you put up a mezuzah, you're not putting it up for protection. You're putting up a mezuzah. It's not for protection. You're putting it up because it's a mitzvah in the Torah to put up a mezuzah. That's why you're putting up. It happens to be that it protects. Some people say, "Oh, I better get some protection. Put up a mezuzah." No. It's you're putting up a mezuzah because it's a mitzvah in the Torah to put up a mezuzah. After you put up a mezuzah, then you can worry about the protection and everything else. You always got to worry. First thing is it's a mitzvah. People say we have to check something happened in the house. Check the mezuzahs. Right, check the mezuzahs. Before you check the mezuzahs because you want to make sure that you're fulfilling the mitzvah before anything else. That's why you check the mezuzahs. Always keep the priorities straight. Okay. Now, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends to Moshe Rabbeinu, finally in Pasuk, to go to 320. V'daber Hashem al Moshe Lemor, Bo daber al Paro Melech Mitzrayim, fourth line. V'yishalach es b'nei Yisrael me'aretzo. He should send out the b'nei Yisrael. V'daber Moshe lifnei Hashem Lemor. Fifth line, Hein b'nei Yisrael lo shamu elai. The b'nei Yisrael won't listen to me. I came and spoke to them, and they see they aren't listening to me. Ve'ech yishma'eni Paro. How will Paro listen to me? V'ani haral sosayim. How does our scripture? I have sealed lips. Sealed lips means that Moshe Rabbeinu had a speech impediment. So the plain meaning is Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, listen, I'm going to come to Paro, and I'm going to say, hey, listen, you have to send out the b'nei Yisrael. But Moshe Rabbeinu has a speech. He's going to come out, listen, Hashem says to send out the b'nei Yisrael. He can do anything. And when the Farshim says, I think the Orach Chaim says, the Paro's going to be looking, he can do anything. Why doesn't he fix your speech impediment? What's Paro going to listen to me? I'm going to come in there talking like that. How's Paro going to possibly listen to me? But even more than that, where does the strength of the Jewish leaders come from? It comes from the Jews who are obeying Moshe Rabbeinu, who obey the leaders. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't mean physically Amaral Society. He says the Jewish people have taken away. If they're not listening to me, they've taken away any strength of influence that I could possibly have on Paro. They've taken away. I'm an Aral Society. I'm essentially powerless against Paro. We had mentioned yesterday that Paro is certainly from Paro's perspective, a guy who's going to be an influential leader. Obviously, he has to be a gifted orator. He has to be somebody who could talk. You get these people through history who've been able to rile up the masses, right? Because of what do you call it? He was great. What's his name? Winston Churchill, right? He was able to, who knows what was really happening, but you got the people believing you, and people were enchanted by, and he's got all these witty comments that he made. He pulled the people along from Moshe Rabbeinu's perspective. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, how's the Paro going to believe me? I haven't got this ability to speak. Okay. Now comes the most puzzling part of all. Now stay with this. If you were in Parshas Shmos, you saw already that Moshe Rabbeinu and Hashem were going at it back and forth. Send me, don't send them. Don't send me, send somebody else. Send. Okay. Comes along over here, Hashem says again to Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm sending you to Mitzrayim, you're pulling out the Jewish people. Okay, now we're ready for some action. Let's see some blood. Let's see some action here. Right? So now the Torah says, watch this. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe vel Aaron vaytzavem el bnei Yisrael. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vel Paro melech Mitzrayim. Hashem commands them. No more talk, Moshe Rabbeinu. No more resisting. Lahotzi es bnei Yisrael me'eretz Yisrael. I'm commanding you to take out the Jewish people. Now, what do you expect to follow right now? Without looking inside, what should follow right now? Moshe marches into Paro, and let's get going here. Right? And what does the Torah do? We take a break for station identification. I don't know if you guys are old enough. Remember on TV, they used to say, we'll take one break, now we're taking a pause for station identification. That's when you had a big commercial, right? Usually at the best part of the show, right? All of a sudden, station identification. Comes along, the Torah says, Eile Roshe Beis Avosam. These are, okay, here we go. We're going to take a break now. We're going to talk about who these people are. B'nai Ruvain B'chor Yisrael Chanochufal. B'nai Shimon. B'nai Levi. I know. I've been watching the story. I've been following the story. Now you got to tell me this. And then even more than that. Look on the next one. Till it gets to Vayikach Amram, page 322, third line from the top. Vayikach Amram es Yocheved Dodoso lo Isha Vatelu lo es Aaron ve'es Moshe. So I finally find out the name of Moshe's parents. Finally found out the name of their parents. They hadn't mentioned that before. Ushnecha Amram Shevo Shloshim Ha'ashana. Ubnei Yitzhar goes through the sons of Levi. And then skip down to Pasuk 26. Who Aaron and Moshe asher amar Hashem lemotzi es b'nei Yisrael mitzrayim al tzivosam. That's Aaron and Moshe who Hashem said, take them out of Mitzrayim. Heim ha'medabrim el paro melech Mitzrayim lotzi es b'nei Yisrael mitzrayim hu Moshe v'Aaron. Okay, I got it. I know who they are. Okay, we're convinced. V'hi b'yom divrei Hashem al Moshe be'eretz Mitzrayim. And now again, he sends them off to Paro. What's happening here? Why did the Torah take this break? Till we finally start. Then it's time to go to Mitzrayim, and finally on page 324, they enter the palace. What happened over here? What took so long? So one of the Farshim says that you have over here we're about to embark right now, starting from Parshas Veira, Bo, Bishalach, then Yisro with Matan Torah. You're about to start with a streak of miracles that mankind has never seen before. You're about to see supernatural 10 plagues, throwing down staffs, splitting of the sea, Har Sinai, and it's going to be performed by Moshe Rabbeinu. And it becomes very difficult to believe that a human being could have done this. Comes along the Torah, and the Torah says, before anything, let's just give you 1 year. I want you to know who this man is. These are human beings born from human parents. There's no immaculate this and there's no immaculate that. These are human beings born from human parents. Here's the name, and that's why the Torah names the parents now. In case you said, well, there was a man, there was a woman, the whole thing sounds very mysterious up until this point. Well, who were these people? We don't know. Yeah, there's a man named Amram, and he's got a wife named Yocheved. And they had 2 sons named Moshe and Aaron. And these are the Moshe and Aaron that are going to Paro. And they're the ones who are performing all the miracles. And you'll notice that the Torah stops here. The Torah says these are the sons of Ruvain, Shimon, then we get to Levi. And then the Torah doesn't go on to tell you the rest of the lineage of the Jewish people. It stops at Ruvain, it goes to Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi. It stops over here. How come? Normally the Torah then goes through the whole thing and keeps telling you everybody who gave birth to everybody and who each tribe had. Why did the Torah stop here? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, here's Moshe and Aaron. So start with Levi. You want to get to Moshe and Aaron, so just tell me about Moshe and Aaron, that they're human beings. Why did you start with Reuven, Shimon, and then get to Levi? What do we care about who's from Reuven and Shimon over here? What do you say?
They all, I remember, received the same rebuke from Yaakov.
There is an opinion that because these were the 3 that received a rebuke, very good. These were the 3 that received a rebuke, therefore the Torah gives them a certain tribute over here and it names them again. There is such an opinion. One of the Farshim says, in case you think, just so we want you to know, on the one hand, they're human beings. On the other hand, it's not just the first guy who came along. See, here is Reuven and his family. Didn't find anybody there qualified. They're great people, but not qualified to be the leader. Shimon, here's all his family. Great people. None of them are qualified to be the Levi. Finally, we get to Levi. That means it wasn't just randomly picked out. Moshe Rabbeinu was chosen. Moshe Rabbeinu is chosen as the because he's qualified. First, here are the other people. But we want you to know it goes in both directions. On the one hand, he's the most qualified. On the other hand, he's a human being. He's a human being, and these are miracles that are being performed by human beings. Number one. Number two, take a look at Rashi in Pasuk Chavav. I'm reading Pasuk Chavav again. Hu Aaron uMoshe asher amar Hashem lahem hotzios b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Yisrael tzivosam. Now, what strikes you strange about that pasuk right off the bat? He put Aaron first. Take a look at Rashi. Right column, 5 lines from the bottom, on 322. Hu Aaron uMoshe asher amar Hashem. Says Rashi, Yesh mikomos, there are places, shemakdim Aaron leMoshe. There are certain places where Aaron precedes Moshe. V'yesh mikomos shemakdim Moshe leAaron. There are places where Moshe precedes Aaron. Lomar lecha sheshkulim ke'echad. That's to tell you that they are considered equal. Nothing bother you about that? Nothing bother you about that?
Moshe's supposed to be greater.
Of course. Moshe, Lakambi, Moshe, nobody ever rose like Moshe. What do you mean they're equal? If they're equal, why is Moshe the leader? Moshe went up on the mountain. Aaron didn't go up on the mountain. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who's Hashem spoke to face to face. He didn't speak out. What does it mean they're equal? Not only that, the Rambam says every Jew has to strive to be the same level as Moshe Rabbeinu. I got news for you, right? We could strive, right? We could strive, but it's not going to happen. Hey, if you ever have prophecy, let me know, right? Any prophecy at all, right? Come to me straight away. Come to me straight away because we got to deal with it real quick, right? If you ever have prophecy, come to me straight away. And if you have a prophecy like Moshe Rabbeinu, then big time. You know, so what does it mean they're equal? What does it mean they're equal? The answer is that we don't measure things objectively. We measure things subjectively. That means Moshe Rabbeinu, with his potential, got to that level of prophecy. He got to that level. At our level of potential, with all due respect to all of us, by the way, whenever you hear the expression, with all due respect, that means you're about to hear something not respectful. Yeah. All due respect means you're about to be disrespected. Yeah, that's what it means. With all due respect, sir, you are incompetent. Right? But I don't mean anything personal, with all due respect. Right? So every time somebody says with all due respect, kind of tense up, okay, what's it going to be now? So Moshe Rabbeinu is at his level of potential, he fulfills his potential. Somebody else with a lesser potential fulfills. It's all that we're asked for, is to fill our potential. If one guy has the potential to finish Shas 100 times, and somebody else has the potential to learn one Masechta, and he does it, and the other guy learned Shas 99 times instead of 100 times, he occupies a higher place because he fulfilled his potential. That's all we're asked to do, is fulfill our individual potential. It can't be any other way. It can't be any other way. Moshe Rabbeinu was born, it says he was Tov, the house filled with light. The house filled with light. It says he was born, he was already circumcised. Right? There are a lot of people are born, the house isn't filled with light, the house is filled with bills. Right? For most people. Moshe Rabbeinu was born, the house is filled with light. Right? That's okay, I don't know. Ask your parents if the house was filled with light when you were born. Right? Nobody ever told me that I filled the house with light. Right? So you got a different potential. You've got a different potential. It works in the potential. Aaron HaKohen is the greatest, second greatest man in history. Later, he fulfilled his potential as Aaron HaKohen. When Aaron HaKohen died, the entire Jewish people mourned for him. When Moshe Rabbeinu died, only the men mourned for him. You know that? You didn't know that? Moshe Rabbeinu, only the men mourned for Moshe Rabbeinu. When Aaron died, everybody mourned. Why? Because Aaron was involved with the people in making Shalom Bayis. The women mourned for him also. Because Aaron was the one who saved marriages. He was involved with the people. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't doing marriage counseling. Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching the law. When Moshe Rabbeinu died, it's like when the Rosh Yeshiva goes, so the men are following the Rosh Yeshiva. The women had nothing to do with the Rosh Yeshiva. Moshe Rabbeinu was the Rosh Yeshiva. Aaron was the one who was involved in making peace among the people. When Aaron died, the Medrash says, I think it says there were thousands of children, maybe 18,000, were named Aaron after him. Because these were the children born from the families that he managed to keep together, from the parents they managed to keep together. Parents who wanted to get divorced, they stayed together. The next child, they named Aaron after him. I don't know what it was like for the Cheder Rebbe. He's got a room full of kids named Aaron. Aaron. I mean Aaron Cohen. It's the 6 guys. Get rid of. I mean Aaron Goldman. Another 8 kids raised their hands. Do you know that in Kiryat Sefer, on here in the interesting statistic, Kiryat Sefer is, right? Kiryat Sefer is like the new B'nai Brak. Modin Elite, yes. Kiryat Sefer, what we call Kiryat Sefer, right? Kiryat Sefer has what I've been told, they have a Cheder class born every day.
Wow.
There's a new Cheder class born every day. How does that make sense? Because if you think that there's a population there of some 100,000 from Jews, and there are 30 male babies born every day, right? So they have a Cheder class born every day, right? And you have also a Beis Yaakov class born every day. Listen, in Lakewood, somebody told me in Lakewood every year they got to open new schools, right? Every year they're constantly opening new schools in Lakewood. I don't think it's much different there. How many kids are born? Every shul has a Shalom Zachar. Yeah, there must be a Shalom Bli Ayin Hara. There's a Shalom Zachar in Kiryat Sefer. Just knock on a door. There's probably your 50-50 chance there's a Shalom Zachar there. If not a Shalom Zachar, then it's a Kiddush. That's what do you call it? That's what. So the Aaron fulfills his potential because that was his role. Moshe Rabbeinu fulfills his potential. That was his role. And therefore, the Torah says that they're equal. Okay. Take a look at Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Paro, and he brings his staff in, and his staff swallows the other staff. Then, he goes in there and he throws down the staff to show the to perform a miracle, and turns into a snake. So the Medrash said the Egyptians were laughing at him. He comes in and throws it down, turns into a serpent. And the Egyptians were laughing at him. They said to him, "What you're bringing in witchcraft into Mitzrayim. It's like bringing there's an expression, bring coals to Newcastle, right? You're selling snow in Alaska. We don't witchcraft. We manufacture witchcraft over here. So Moshe Rabbeinu, Paro calls in the school children, and they throw down their staffs. Everybody's laughing at Moshe Rabbeinu. Then Aaron's staff turns back into a staff, and after it turns back into a staff, it swallows up their staffs. At that point, the Egyptians are like, ooh, that's a trick we never saw. That your staff could turn into a snake and swallow up the other ones. We're not impressed. But it swallowed them up. Chazal say when it turned back into a staff, then it swallowed them up. That they were already impressed by. I was like, oh, okay, he's on to something over here. Okay. Now, take a look at Pasuk Yutes, 326 Pasuk Yutes. V'yomer Hashem al Moshe, and we're Aaron. Hashem says to Moshe, say to Aaron, Kach matcha, 326. Kach matcha deteyodcha al meimei Mitzrayim al narosam. Take your staff and stretch it over the water sources of Egypt. Al narosam beirem al gmehem. Val kol beik ve'emem v'yu dam. Sorry, v'haya dam b'chol eretz Mitzrayim u'v'eitzim u'v'avonim. So the first plague is blood. Vayasu chen Moshe v'Aaron kasher tziva Hashem v'yom amata v'yachas hamayim asher bayor le'nei paro le'nei avodav v'yhavchu kol hamayim asher bayor l'dam. So Chazal say the water turned to blood. And the reason he starts with the Nile is because the Nile was a god to the Egyptians. They worshipped the Nile. The whole country was supported by the Nile. They don't have a lot of rain in Egypt. That's the main water source. And it turns to blood. And everything dies. The fish died. And it's real blood. And Chazal say the Jews came and got rich over here. The Jews made money on this. Because when a Jew drank, if the Egyptian took out a bucket of blood from the Nile, if he poured it into a Jewish cup, it turned into water. And if he turned it into the Egyptian drank blood. And the only way the Egyptians could survive, because there's one opinion that each plague lasts 7 days, so where are they going to get water from? The shower. You can imagine, an Egyptian goes into the shower, turns on the shower, it's blood. And it's got it causes all sorts of inconveniences. You have a what do you call it? You go and dive into a swimming pool, it turns into blood. The only way they could get water is by buying it from the Jews. If they paid the Jews for the water, man, that's a good business. Now that's a good business, and I guarantee you there were no discounts. Right? Yeah, there's going to be a little payback. So they're buying. Okay, what's the point here? Then it goes through the entire the 10 plagues here, which, by the way, the Medrash says they came as a military campaign. The plagues were like it was very organized, like a military campaign. It starts out with blood. If you besiege a city, what's the first thing you do? You poison the water. Okay? The next thing is the frogs come in, right? The trumpeters. Right? Then you have the kinim, or the lice, which is the archers, start shooting in arrows. And then come in the wild animals, which is they come in with the guys with the clubs and everything else, and so on and so forth, till you get to the plague of darkness, which is like putting them in prison. They take the high official, put him, and then makas b'choros, you execute all the high officials, the firstborns. Okay, that's the whole thing. What's the point of the whole thing? What's the point of the whole thing? Starting from down, all the way through. So the basic idea here, and it's a basic idea, but it's an idea that we have to constantly think about. The basic idea is that everyone believes there's a God who created the world. Even Paro believes there's a God who created the world. He had no doubt that the world was created by God. Where do we part company? Is God involved in the day-to-day life of human beings? And the people who say, I believe God created the world, but he's not involved in my daily life, there's an agenda. What's the agenda? The agenda is that if there's no God involved in my daily life, then I could eat whatever I want to eat and I don't have to put on tefillin, because he doesn't care. And that's where Judaism parts company. It shows God is involved in our lives to the nth degree. And now I'm going to prove it to you. You see, if two people are drinking from the same cup and one guy drinks wine and one drinks blood and the other guy drinks water, that means there is a God that's involved here, especially if this is happening on a level of hundreds, if not millions of people. There are millions of people who only drink blood and millions of people who are drinking water. That shows you that there is some sort of divine supervision, what we call hashgacha pratis. And that's the entire point of the 10 plagues, the entire point of the splitting of the sea, the entire point of the giving of the Torah. That a man should believe that there is a God who is involved, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved in the day-to-day living, day-to-day running of our lives. And since he's involved in the day-to-day running of our lives, if he gives us a Torah and says, you have to do this, and you're not allowed to do this, then we have no choice but to obey. And therefore the Jewish people over here are going through Mitzrayim and the Jewish people. It's not only the Egyptians getting punished. This is a slight misconception. It's not that, oh wow, look at these neat punishments on the Mitzrayim. It's a 10-step ulpan for the Jewish people. That there is a God who's running the world. There's a God who's running the world and he's involved to the nth degree. And there's going to be another level. There's going to be man that falls from heaven. And there's going to be a splitting of the sea. And there's going to be a well of water. And you're going to survive 40 years in the desert. This is all part of the same thing. All right, I have to stop. I'm starting to lose the voice. All right.